Well, it's not a proud day for this country. How could it be a proud day when a man who was not elected by the people becomes president of the United States? How does that happen?
Michael Moore, the master of exposing hypocrisy, just went scorched earth on Donald Trump. Live on TV. It was a full-on, no-holds-barred roast that left MAGA world in shock. Did Trump's spray tan melt under the pressure? Did Moore finally crack that unshakable ego? And how did Trump respond? An angry tweet, a meltdown, or launching another scam? Buckle up, because this takedown is absolutely brutal. Let's get into it.
They really believe that the average normal American wants to hear that. They actually believe that we don't like immigrants. We are immigrants. We are all the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of immigrants, unless you are African American or unless you're amongst the first peoples that were here. We are all the product of immigrants, and we love our grandparents and our great-grandparents and the people that got us here to this great country. And to talk about immigrants in this vicious, vile way.
Michael Moore just did what millions of Americans have only dreamed of. He torched Donald Trump live on TV in front of the whole world with zero mercy. Let's be real, watching Trump get called out on live television is practically a national pastime at this point. But this was next level. It was like watching a demolition crew tear down a building that was already crumbling under its own weight. Spectacular, inevitable, and almost too easy.
This election is going to be the biggest fuck you ever recorded in human history. And it will feel good. For a day. Yeah, maybe a week. Possibly a month. And then, like the Brits, who wanted to send a message, so they voted to leave Europe, only to find out that if you vote to leave Europe, you actually have to leave Europe. And now they regret it.
And let's face it, when Michael Moore speaks, people listen. He's been calling things before they happen for years, like a political Nostradamus, but with a baseball cap and a relentless drive to expose corruption. So when he set his sights on Trump this time, you just knew it was going to be good. Spoiler alert, it was.
I don't think they really are in touch with where the majority of Americans are at. The majority of Americans do not want this divisiveness. They don't want the threat of violence. We are okay to disagree with each other, but that's where...
Now, Trump has been called a lot of things. Business genius, by himself. Stable genius, also by himself. And a man whose hair looks like it's actively trying to escape his head, by pretty much everyone else. But one thing he is not is someone who handles criticism well. No. Trump takes criticism the way a toddler takes being told no. He melts down. So when Moore came at him with facts, logic, and, worst of all, humor, you could almost hear the rage tweeting begin.
Yeah, he's a good man. He's done a good job.
Moore laid out Trump's greatest hits of failure like a late-night infomercial. But wait, there's more. And oh, was there ever. From endless legal battles to the vanishing act of his so-called billionaire empire, it was a full buffet of bad decisions. And Trump, a man who loves buffets, except when they're piled high with subpoenas, was not ready for this one. Let's start with the biggest, most obvious train wreck, Trump's business empire, aka the financial equivalent of a reality show. Because nothing says great businessman like a string of bankrupt casinos, a fraudulent university, and a steak brand that somehow failed in America.
That Donald Trump is a big believer in capitalism and free enterprise and the sort of thing that's driven us into the ground, this belief that you could just do whatever you want and it doesn't matter who gets hurt by it. And I don't really see him changing, but I think he knows he's been on TV. You know, I mean, he's a performance artist. He knows what to say and he knows how to make this appeal.
You think it's BS?
I think it's, well, please, I don't use that kind of language.
This man had the one thing Americans love more than freedom, red meat, and still couldn't make it work. That's like opening a pizza place in New York and going out of business because people just weren't into it.
He knows something. He knows how to manipulate a dumbed down population. A population whose schools have been wrecked, whose media is just insipid and stupid and doesn't give people the facts about what's going on. So the public is easily manipulated by somebody like him. Those who vote for him. He had record turnouts. He has the largest rallies. He supports a 21st century version of fascism, of marrying the state and capital together to benefit the few at the expense of the many, and in the process.
And then there's his political career, a never-ending, slow-motion car crash that somehow keeps getting worse. You'd think that after losing an election, getting impeached twice, and inciting one of the most chaotic and humiliating events in modern American history at the Capitol, he'd take the hint and fade into political obscurity. But no, that would require a level of self-awareness that Donald J. Trump simply does not possess. Taking a hint just isn't his style. If anything, the more America collectively says, "Enough already," the more convinced he becomes that the country is secretly begging for his comeback. Trump taking a hint is like his most die-hard supporters sitting through an actual, factual, unbiased history class. It's just not happening. Because why deal with reality when you can rewrite history in real time?
This president-elect doesn't seem engaged at all. He's more engaged with tweeting about Alec Baldwin on SNL.
Yeah.
5 hours after the show finishes at 1 a.m. And by 6 a.m., he's not funny, sad, not watchable. And it's like, you've got time for that? And you haven't taken one of the national security briefings? You've taken only 3 of them in this first month?
Consider this. Most politicians, when faced with scandal, legal trouble, and overwhelming public rejection, take the opportunity to bow out, write a self-serving memoir, and cash in on speaking gigs. But Trump, not a chance. Instead of making a graceful exit, he doubles down, insisting he's the victim of a massive conspiracy, one supposedly orchestrated by everyone from the radical left to the deep state to, at this point, maybe hear the ghost of Abraham Lincoln. Okay, maybe not the last one, but give it time. And speaking of conspiracy theories, Trump has turned them into an art form. His entire political brand is built on grievance, alternative facts, and the belief that reality is negotiable. Lost an election? Blame fraud. Got impeached? Call it a witch hunt. Indicted? Frame it as political persecution. In Trump's world, losing is never his fault. It's always someone else rigging the system against him. His post-presidency behavior makes one thing clear. He refuses to accept the one thing he hates most: irrelevance. And let's not forget his legal troubles, which are piling up faster than his unpaid contractors. With multiple criminal indictments, civil lawsuits, and ongoing investigations, he's racking up more courtroom appearances than campaign stops. But does that stop him? Of course not. He wears his legal woes like a badge of honor, spinning them into yet another excuse to play the victim and keep his supporters outraged.